Go ahead and, we're live.
That's
right?
going on the intro. I don't know how to do an intro.
On a program called Chocolate University.
That's just how my family works. You can't really judge them for selling it on the black market. Nothing against people who smoke pot and skip class.
I just studied in Dubai. I was going around with one of my friends in his Lamborghini.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Hello and welcome to the Lifr podcast.
Hello. Welcome to the first episode of Lifr podcast. Today we have on Zac Smith. He's a sharp-dressed motherfucker, and he does some pretty interesting shit around the world. So, Zac, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me, Winston. I'm happy to be here today. So I grew up in Oklahoma, Missouri area, and just recently entered the University of Arkansas a couple years ago. And I'm currently studying international economics with minors in Arabic, mathematics, and also economic development. And I'm really interested in the economic development part long term, and I'm hoping to go to Oxford for their economic development master's program.
What does economic development mean?
So economic development really focuses on helping the countries that are at the bottom and have a high amount of diversification between their high diversification in the amount that their wealth is distributed within the country.
Yeah, so you're talking about a wealth gap.
Exactly. So that happens a lot, and in some of these countries you can see that they're poor overall, and the mass populace is living on essentially nothing, but there are some very wealthy individuals, and so that's one of the things that economic development works with, is trying to reduce that income difference and trying to help their growth match national rates.
Yeah, and so can you just list off some of the countries that you've been to, a few experiences?
Yeah, so I've traveled, I think as of now, to 14 different countries. Some of those, like Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Vietnam, some of those countries I've done development projects with. Some of it has been familial travel with my dad, who does development work as well and is a missionary. And so in Vietnam, we helped build some biogas digesters, and we actually worked with a local lime co-op as well. So
yeah, and then you went to Mozambique with Zan. Can you tell us a little bit
Correct.
about that?
Yeah, so Zan and I were in Mozambique. We were on different teams. I was leading the finance and accounting team, and we were working with a large poultry farm. It's called Novos Horizontes. And
Jesus.
Yeah, it's Portuguese. Interesting story with that. But
Where's Mozambique?
Mozambique is on the east side of Africa.
Yeah, it's just to the northeast of South Africa.
Okay. I
And
still have no clue.
they were
Yeah, you just think the bottom of Africa, you got South Africa, right? You go up and to the right.
Okay, yeah, I know. All right, I got it now.
and then it's south of Malawi. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's like way below Mali, right?
Wait, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. I paid attention in high school a little bit. I only cheated on half the 200 country test.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And okay, so you've I know you touched on a few years back when I met you. You said something about an orphanage somewhere in Africa. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, my dad's headed there in a few days. But it's a locally native-run orphanage that we have.
Where at?
It's in Kenya, close to Migori, Stella area. And so we've been working with them for about 10 years, and it's grown from just 10, 20 kids sleeping with the director and
Jesus, Zach, did you have to say it like that?
no, like he let him into his house, and I think he was
we don't cut this, right? We don't cut
yeah.
Jesus. Alright, Zach is not a pedophile for reference.
Just for clarification.
Yeah, but the program really grew a lot, and now we have hundreds of students that are coming in from the region. We just built a secondary school. We rebuilt the primary school, and so one of the things we're working is trying to get that on a sustainable.
And secondary, just for people who don't know, where does that start?
Secondary is essentially what we consider high school.
Okay.
The only difference is that these students study nonstop. Americans don't really understand the intensity of a lot of secondary schools around the world.
You and I saw that in Vietnam a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Studies are their school, and breaks are just breaks to study, essentially.
Yeah, no, just so people listening, when we were in Vietnam, I mean, you had students taking our equivalent of 23, 24, 25 hours. They'd go
Yeah.
home, they'd study, and then they'd take English classes at night. They often worked a job, and I don't know,
Non-stop
still they had
rush.
more friends than me, so just unpopular over here. Yeah, okay, so what do you see as like the next steps in that? I mean, with developing your orphanage,
Yeah.
because obviously you've taken it
Mhm.
from. I mean, do you see that it's grown from just a few, 20 kids to 100? Do you
Right.
see that as a problem, or do you see it as a good thing?
So
And why?
it's really a multifaceted issue. We're always happy to see more children being helped and
Yeah.
more children being given opportunities. There's some amazing stories that they come back from, abusive family members,
Mhm.
orphans, students with literally no opportunities, children who've walked for days, and then the orphanage takes them in. And it's really sad to see how all of this works, and so it's always heartbreaking to have to turn children away.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a need to increase the sustainability of the orphanage itself, and so we're trying to do that in a few different methods. We grow crops on the land around it, primarily maize,
Okay.
for the orphanage's use, and then if there's extra, we can always sell it on the market around. But we're looking a lot into different options for trying to diversify and
Just so before you go on,
Yeah.
like your family's role in this, are you like executives in the organization?
So-
Do you own it, or
So the organization's name is Africa Mission and Beyond, and
okay?
my
you have
dad.
a website?
Yeah, we do.
All right, we'll put that in the link.
Okay, yeah. And we, my dad started going to Africa 20 years ago,
Okay.
and so he leads the organization, and it's sponsored through our church. We're actually hoping to eventually start up Samaritan's Vision, which would be
Okay.
a separate nonprofit just for humanitarian work. But as of now, it's still under the body of the church and does both humanitarian as well as more church-sponsored activities. And so the orphanage is one of those, but it's our main project and focus right now, and the main focus for the next few years is to get that sustainable, like we said. So one of the options that we're looking into is actually a poultry farm. So that's where I'm hoping, with Zan and our
Yeah, do you guys want to
experience.
touch on that in Mozambique, your time with poultry farms?
So
Yeah, I can give
Yeah.
a quick run. I think the key with poultry farms is they're a very good business for lower economic areas because they offer a lot of different things for the
Yeah,
area.
and just for like people listening to clarify, so how does the setup? How do the people get the poultry farms? Because I know when we were in Vietnam, sometimes with the limes, they would loan those out to farmers who can't afford them, and then they'd pay them back, and then they'd
Mhm.
own the lime trees, and then they'd sell the produce back to the farm.
Yeah.
So how does that work with
So with
chickens?
the chicken, as far as I mean, I'm not like I don't know every specific detail,
Right.
but essentially the way it worked in Mozambique was you have the main farm which is in charge of older chickens, and what they'll do is they'll give out like freshly hatched chickens to like smaller individuals who have gone through like an application process. And so that could be, do you remember how many like those small like outlet farms would have, like 100?
it was depending on their previous experience and
Yeah.
how big their facilities were, it could vary, but some of them were getting a few hundred
Yeah, a
chicks, and they
couple
were
hundred.
like managing a lot of chickens over.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, they'll raise them from pretty much from hatch to full grown, and then send it back to the plant for the chickens to be processed and sent out.
Yeah.
And I mean, the chickens they're great for the area because they're low in cost and they offer a great source of protein for.
Now, like Zan said, there's a few different types of chickens, and the one that the central farm is in charge of is the layer breed, and the layers are just literally kept just to hatch or to lay the eggs, and then they hatch those in their hatchery processes, and then those chicks are sent out. But then they have those chicks are the broiler chicks, and those are what is essentially grown and outsourced, and then sold back to the farm, and then the farm processes and sells the raw.
Okay, so are there any eggs processed in this? I mean, other than like new chickens being born.
They do take, I think, some of the
Pretty
eggs.
decent
possibly.
amount. Well, yeah, they do have like it's kind of a separate organization, but still part of Novos
Yeah.
Horizontes.
A partnership. Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of, but that just grows just sells eggs.
Okay, so they kind of outsource that a little bit, speed up the process. That'd be really tricky too with farmers, with loaning them out the chickens and them selling you back the eggs, knowing that they're selling you back a decent amount of eggs.
Yeah.
And that's where it was really interesting to see, one of the basic concepts of economics is that everybody acts rationally, but especially that they respond to incentives, and that's
why
where
I stay up till 5 a.m. playing Xbox. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that's one
very
way to do it.
rational human being here.
But they one of the problem is the main farm would actually send out feed as well to these outgrowers,
Okay.
and so the outgrowers would essentially be on a loan from the main farm with this feed and would pay back. And the way they sell their chicken, it was a pretty complicated setup that they had, but they found
Yeah, it gets into the microfinance. You're into that too, right?
that's started changing some over time once I started seeing some of the inner workings of it.
Oh yeah,
But,
it's pretty nasty business. But
sure.
feel free to tie that if you could tie that
Okay,
in a little
yeah.
bit here.
So what I was saying with the chicken feed was they found that the way in which they made their contracts, you have to be really careful because these side incentives pop up, and the farmers might realize that they can take the feed.
A side incentive would be them selling it in the black market.
Essentially,
Okay.
an incentive that doesn't match up with the main farm's incentives.
Right, okay.
And so that's just one of the interesting things that you always have to be cognizant of.
Mm-hmm. And that's not really specific to that area either. And we saw that in Vietnam.
Everywhere.
If you remember, with the when we talked to the owner, they'd have people who'd sell their limes off market because they could get a fraction more money. But I mean, that's the difference between
Exactly.
starving and having clothes for their kids and sending their kids to college. And I mean, just basic things that we take for granted a lot in the U.S.
Right.
That you can't really judge them for selling it on the black market. But then again, you have to follow through with the process and stay to your commitments.
And that's where you can make justifications on a small scale, but at the end of the day, it takes away from the sustainability of the organization.
Right. Yeah, it hurts everybody's
Right,
goal.
and then that tears down the organization over time.
Yeah, and also an organization. I mean, they're looking to help the most people possible. And so if you're screwing them in the side, I mean,
Right.
a few people do that, and it actually makes a really big dent. And then so it takes out the whole organization. I mean, you just have 10% of the population not selling it back, not fulfilling their contracts. The whole organization could be void.
I think that's something we saw like with Novus Horizontes a little bit, because I know initially they had so many issues with these things, like people selling too much or not responding to incentives and being able to trust these, build up trust for themselves so that people would follow through with the process was the biggest key, because they would start it, but then there were so many other opportunities like for instant gratification. They don't really look long term, which is understandable, but
And that's where getting into the cultures of these regions that you work with is so vital and imperative, just because from an American Western perspective, to us, we go to where the prices are cheapest or the quality is highest, but in some of these other countries, things function a lot more around trust and personal relationships. And so that's where Novus Horizontes was working very hard to build that personal relationship with their outgrowers and try to make things more sustainable in the long run.
Okay. And then I had a few more questions along that line for you.
You'd mentioned microfinance.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Because I don't know what the fuck that is.
Okay. Yeah. So microfinance is I forgot his name. He got a Nobel Peace Prize a while back for it. He was from India, and
India's doing very well.
Yeah, I'm actually headed to India this summer for a business seminar.
Where at?
We're heading really all around. We're going to go through Mumbai, New Delhi, Agra.
My brother did venture capital in New Delhi last summer.
Okay.
With two people from Stanford, so they'd probably find you of interest.
Cool. Yeah.
I'll see if I can. He doesn't talk to me. That's not funny.
That's a little problematic.
Yeah, it's not funny. My brother thinks I'm a fucking idiot, which is true, like comparatively. But fuck you, Isaac. I make more money than you.
just in case he's out there.
Yeah, just in case he happens to listen. I actually asked him on the show and he didn't respond. No, and well, I mean, I do talk a lot of shit to him, so it's justifiable. We have a good relationship, just to clarify. Like, we're cool. It's just how my family works. But no, yeah, I'll reach out to those people, see if I can get you those emails. Because are you going with a group?
We are.
Okay, so is this what's the purpose of the group?
The purpose of the group is really it's keyed as like an overall business seminar, so it's not a development project this time, but we're visiting organizations from huge multinationals that are really changing the landscape of business in India to just some of them are just what appears to just be small mom and pop shops, but yet are dealing with millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. So it's a really different avenue from some of the other places.
Wait, did you go on the India study abroad this last summer?
No, this last summer I was just in Mozambique and Morocco.
You're going on it this? You're going
This
on okay? Because my brother went on it last summer, and then he did the venture capital thing separate. So, do you have plans in the later half of the summer? Because you might be able to do the same thing.
I'm a critical language semi-finalist right now, so I might.
What does that mean?
Okay, so it's the Department of State funds different students to study different what they deem critical languages, stuff like Russian, Swahili, Arabic. And so hopefully I'll be in either Jordan or Oman studying later this
Yeah, you were
summer.
over there this past semester too.
Yeah, so I was in Morocco in the latter half of the summer studying
Yeah.
Arabic for 5 hours a day in the class. And then I was in Dubai and Sharjah studying at the American University of Sharjah for a semester.
Okay, and just for people who don't know, what is Sharjah?
Sharjah is an emirate that is right next to Dubai. It's smaller, it's more conservative, and so when people talk about the UAE, generally they're talking about Abu Dhabi or Dubai, but Sharjah is just one of the other emirates that's right next to it.
Yeah, did you go over to Lebanon at all?
Yeah, I actually had a friend who was studying abroad to the University of Arkansas, where I met here in Arkansas, and so I hooked back up with him online, and we got to hang out in Lebanon, which was a really interesting experience.
We're at Beirut.
Right on the outskirts of Beirut, and then we went up to Jaita, and then over right across the border from Damascus. So.
Okay, yeah. No, my a lot of the people I was interacting with in London hang out in Beirut because they have family. They have family that's fleeing Syria, and so they don't want to come all the way to the west.
Yeah.
But since they have holdings, they can go to Lebanon and Beirut and live in the nicer area of Beirut. Although from what I've heard, there's a lot of very bad places in Beirut.
There are some places you do want to avoid, depending on. There's so many. Lebanon is such a factionized society. It was so interesting just talking for a few days.
What does factionized mean?
So it's composed of a lot of different factions or sects, and so I think there's technically over 100 political groups, and then about like 20 main ones, and they're all related to religion, related to political ideologies, and it just creates a really interesting political social environment to interact in.
A really rigid society, hard to move around, like kind of what you're born into, or like
possibly less rigid and more like really dynamic, I would say. Actually,
okay, so it's different than like say India with the caste system.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the caste system at all. Totally separate. But I mean, once you find out what family someone's from, what sect they are,
last name goes a long way.
Last name, and there's a whole system there that with colors and with different symbols, and just finding out where your alliances lie.
Is it like Vietnam, that the lighter skin is considered higher class?
I wouldn't say that as much.
Okay.
Lebanon's pretty diverse now. With the influx of refugees, that has created a really interesting dynamic there in society.
Well, because I mean, the refugees, you have some who are super rich, some who are super poor, and some who are part of the reason we have a quote travel ban.
And real estate has increased so much there just because of the influx of people. Yeah. And it's from an American perspective, we say, oh, we don't want too many immigrants coming in, depending on which, but sometimes that's what our government's kind of doing right now, is we don't want too many immigrants. And we have a population over 300 million, but in Lebanon, it's just a few million people, and they have about half to 3/4 of the Lebanese population is actually immigrants. So if there's like about 4 million Lebanese living in Lebanon, there's about 3 million refugees, which is ridiculous when you think about.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, there was a Lebanese lady from Lebanon who cut my hair in London, and she said whenever she goes back home, she hates it because nobody's Lebanese. There's people who don't even speak the same language as you. And there's people who hate you. There's people asking for money on every corner. Now, I mean, this is obviously not everybody. This is the very lowest, economic sector of people that are coming over as refugees. And I mean, they don't have shit. So can you blame them for asking you for, welfare? But I mean, also you have the Lebanese government, bailing out money left and right. where they can't really take care of their own people because, like you say, half their population isn't their people.
And that's where it is of growing importance to some of the Lebanese to marry amongst themselves so they can retain that Lebanese identity. Same thing actually in the UAE. I found it very interesting is that of the Emirati population, about 9 to 11% of the total population of the UAE is actually Emirati. The rest are all expats. And so there's this great deal of nationalism that I see there, and the importance of marrying amongst themselves and continuing that Emirati identity is very close to their hearts. And it's really interesting from an American perspective where we're just a melting pot of...
Yeah, how did you, how did the people there feel about Trump?
I was actually really, really surprised.
I was very surprised too with the Arab people I interacted with in London.
Mm-hmm. So there's a populace that says his immigration policy is awful and preventing us from traveling. I want to see my family over there. I want to travel here. I can't. And so there's that bit of annoyance. But on the other hand, I was flabbergasted by the amount of people that were like, well, Trump actually isn't that bad. And they said, if I were an American, I probably would have voted for Trump. Yeah. And the amount of... I was just so shocked. And yeah,
that's what I got. Yeah. Every single Arabic person I interacted with in London, I mean, these are people who can't get into the United States, who have family in the United States, right? Yeah. And I mean, very wealthy families in the United States, they can't get into the United States even with all that money. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I'd probably do the same thing. I'd probably support it because, I was talking to some people from Syria. And I'm like, well, how do you feel about, the Syrian situation? When do you see it recovering?
Yeah.
How do you feel about Trump not allowing people in? And they're like, man, Syria's fucked. Like, there's parts of Syria you can't go. Because, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm not saying, like, something bad is going to happen to you. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's on your side, who's against you. And there's people who just want to kill you just to kill you. I mean, when you boil it down. And so a lot of them supported the quote Muslim ban or travel ban, however you look at it, which
the definition calling it a Muslim ban
is probably the most ignorant / arrogant / political thing I've ever seen. Because
like in the UAE, you look at their own travel bans, and some of these countries are making the exact same statements as Trump was, or the government themselves. And
the whole quote travel ban blocks 7% of the world's Muslim population.
If it was a Muslim ban, we'd be banning some of the Southeast Asian countries as well, and there's so many Arab countries that are still allowed.
What's the number one Arab or Muslim country in the world? It's like Malaysia or something?
I'm thinking it might be Malaysia. They have a huge Islamic population.
Zan, can you pull that up?
Largest Muslim population?
Yeah, just pull up the top 10. I know who's the really good research firm. Is it Pew? I think
they do a lot of research.
I think Pew might have done something, but they did it in like 2010 and then like a 2020 projection and 2050 projection, and like 3 of the countries in the travel ban make it on the list in 2050.
Really?
But until then, like none of the there's one country that's on the travel ban that's in the top 10 countries right now.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's a very, very small portion.
For sure.
Of
It's a political ban, and when you look at Trump's ideology, you obviously can't support everything as a whole, but when you look at the responsibility of the president, no matter what their background, to protect American interests and to make sure that our societies are safe. I mean, there's a lot of problems happening in Europe right now, and it's really unfortunate because it's always the minority that makes the name for the majority. There's so many...
you see that in any situation. I mean, for kids acting like shitheads in school. I mean, why do we have to line up in kindergarten?
The whole class exactly.
Yeah, because there's like 1 or 2 shitheads who have piece of shit parents who act like shitheads, and they ruin it for everybody. And I mean, see that with guns in America, drugs in America, if you will, basically everything. Yeah. And that you have people who something just like exploded above our heads. All right, and then so I mean, you have people who from my view at least lack self-control, and they ruin everything that's good. This is why we can't have nice things.
Do you have those numbers?
Yeah.
All right, so the top top Muslim population in the world is in Indonesia with 225 million Muslims, followed by Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Nigeria.
All right. So what is Pakistan on this travel ban? Maybe.
I don't remember.
Zane, can you pull the travel ban countries in another window?
The visa situation
also,
between us is a little...
Zach, you muted Chrome, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good. For those of you who don't know, this will probably be our first podcast, but it's not actually our first podcast. We recorded one yesterday with Spencer George, and there were some ads playing in the background on Chrome. Big rookie mistake, yeah.
It's Syria, Iran, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, Chad, and North Korea.
Okay, and so what were any of those in the top countries?
Iran is at 6th.
Iran is at, and then who's the research from?
That's from the Washington Post.
Okay, so it's the Washington Compost. I'm just kidding. I never read it. For those of you who are listening, though, you can get a sick Wall Street Journal discount. It's like $1 for 15 weeks.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's not from us. That's just something I saw that everyone...
prices.
Yeah, everybody should get into. If you have a student... I mean, even if you don't read it, you can get the paper delivered.
Iran does have one of the highest Muslim population by percentage, but not by number.
But not by number.
Iran as a country is 99.7% Muslim.
Well, yeah, but you never hear anybody talking about Iran. And you think about it too, is they're in just as bad of a... I thought about that a lot in London, is they're just as bad, if not worse, of a situation than Syria. But, you know, with London, you always hear about Syrian refugees. In America, you always hear about Syrian refugees. You got Iran, Iraq.
True, but, I mean, it is Saudi Arabia and Iran that are having all their proxy wars. Like, Iran is such a big heavy lifter and proponent in some of these problems, and that's where, like, Yemen is another example of the proxy wars. Mm-hmm. That's essentially a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, but it's just through them funding different groups that are fighting each other, and it doesn't take place in their own country.
Okay.
But, I mean, Iran is pretty resource rich, and, like, they have a lot going for them if they use it right.
Yeah.
But it's just with since they're primarily Shia, that has a lot of problems with some of the Sunni, and then...
Yeah, can you touch on that? Because a lot of people don't know the difference in those, and... Since you study Arabic, have you studied the difference at all on those?
I haven't studied formally the religion.
I know one. It's with the prophet's.
It comes back to the caliphate,
cousin or something.
So it came back to who they decided should be the main, essentially, leader of the religion. And in Iran, with the Shias, it came down to, was it the cousin of Muhammad?
Zane, can you pull this up?
Shia versus...
Yeah, it's Shia versus Sunni, right?
Yeah.
Sunni versus Shia. Is there an H at the end of it sometimes?
No.
Because I know with the Sharia law, there's a couple different ways to spell Sharia.
Well, yeah, sometimes spelling with Arabic is really interesting, especially when people don't know how to transliterate between them.
That's because I was looking at it. The first time I saw it spelled correctly, actually, I was looking at an investment fund in New York City. That was headed up by some Arabic. It was looking for Arabic investors, and so it was all Sharia compliant. They were flying in like a Sharia compliant person. He was going to, make sure their income wasn't from alcohol sales.
Yeah.
Anything like adult video content, so pornography, guns, tobacco, any sort of drugs, anything basically that could be deemed unclean, anything with an age restriction, basically.
And then those implications in Islamic banking are actually really interesting. I personally try to stay out of the politics and religion realm for the most part. My interest in the region is helping people no matter what background they're from at the end of the day. And in some of these regions, you just do best just not bringing it up. And so that's where, like, overall, I try to stay out of that. But it was really interesting talking to some of my friends and seeing, for example, trading in futures or, like, selling short on stocks and commodities and different things. It's really interesting to see what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Did you study any of that?
I didn't study any of it. One of my friends did a lot of trading on the side, and I was talking with him. And he actually said, and see, these are things that are, depending on your school of thought, is debated back and forth. But
and is this part of the difference between Sunni and Shia?
I wouldn't say as much. This is just, I mean, you have your.
It's a pretty cut and dry issue as far as the differences go.
Well, you have. I mean, that's where like religion, at the end of the day, comes down to a personal belief system to an extent. Just because if you don't follow something, you don't follow it, and so there's a lot of Muslims that might not necessarily follow every aspect of Sharia law or Islamic banking that maybe another group says is mandatory to follow.
Yeah, so it's like in Christianity where you have, like
you
Catholics,
have your different groups that say this is what you should do, and some do it, some don't. Everybody has their different interpretation. And so it's hard to say. I mean, you can't say like this group is wrong or this group's right, or but it's just like their differences.
Well, I mean, that's because a lot of it's translated. And so based on how you translate it or interpret it, I found out there's a difference between a translator and an interpreter, too. I did not know that. But for those people who don't know, there's a thing called an interpreter who will relay the basic message. And then there's a translator who will directly translate it from one language to the other. And so a lot of the people you see, for example, like at a FIFA thing where they're quote translating the languages from one language to the other, they're actually interpreting. So they're not going to get the exact wordage across. So whenever you see an interview and you're like, that answered it kind of weird, that's kind of funny wording, it's because they're not saying the exact word. They're just getting it so that the person understands it. Zan, did you find anything on the differences?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing it says is all Muslims are guided by the Sunnah, I believe is what it is, but Sunnis stress its primacy. Shia are also guided by wisdom of Muhammad's descendants through his son-in-law and cousin Ali.
Yeah. So. And that's where it came down to.
Wait, so which one's with the cousin?
So...
the son-in-law.
The son-in-law and cousin, that's Shia.
Shia.
Yeah, so the son-in-law, they said, this is the person that Muhammad was trying to essentially pass down the next order of hoping to establish and keep everything solid. But the Shia are more saying, no, this comes down to blood and lineage, and his cousin is the one that had the supremacy and how that ran. And so that's where part of their conflict comes back to, but there's so many. It
seems like a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so I take it he was probably closer to the son-in-law than the cousin, and so that's the argument there.
And so that's why if he had more confidence or had felt as if.
But he never said. Do we know?
I think he did, because that's why.
I mean, it didn't say in that. It was just a quick like
BBC
article.
That's why it's. That's why it's.
I do like the BBC.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I watch them a lot. Sometimes even instead of the Wall Street Journal. Did you know? Not to get too far off topic, but I found the most interesting article in the BBC. It's actually I'll link the video in the description. But the mayor of Stockton, California, is 27 years old, African American, from Stockton.
Really?
I haven't seen a single U.S. source fucking cover that. Like that, you know how groundbreaking that is? First off, the mayor of any city. Zane, can you pull up the population of Stockton, California, please? The mayor of any city at 27, that's pretty fucking phenomenal. Throw back to Parks and Recreation. What was it? Ice something? That's funny.
Remember.
I'll try to find the... Fuck, I don't even know. It was like Iceman. He made like the whole... I don't know. He did something stupid. Whatever, regardless. But so he's from Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
Stockton's population is like 300,000. Zan will tell us the exact number in a minute.
Stockton, California.
Yeah, and then... I mean, he's a
307,000.
307,000. So this guy is the mayor of 307,000 people. He's a native. He's African American from Stockton. And so, like, as far as like the left leaning ideology goes, that's about as good as you fucking get. And so I'm surprised Democrats haven't jumped on this, and I'm surprised the Republicans haven't jumped. Apparently, probably doesn't have agreeable views. Probably that's what it is. But he seems like a really level-headed guy who's just like looking at issues, and he's not taking on like huge policies. He's
why
like,
did BBC cover it?
I have no fucking clue why BBC covered it.
Okay.
But that's what's so mind-blowing to me. I put it on my LinkedIn and Facebook, I think, and that, I mean, like that's a big deal. Because I mean, have you ever seen a 27-year-old mayor?
I guess it depends on the size of the.
But for a city of 307,000 people.
Yeah,
he's the young Michael Tubbs is his name.
Michael Tubbs.
And he's the
Go follow that motherfucker.
youngest mayor in American history of a city of more than 100,000 people.
Okay, more than 100,000.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
307,000 people.
Okay.
Like,
One of the youngest elected officials in the nation, born and raised in Stockton, went to Stanford.
Nice.
Master's degree in policy, leadership, and organizational studies. Bachelor's with honors. Truman Scholar.
yeah. So I mean,
yeah.
according to most people, this guy shouldn't even exist.
Okay.
Because I mean, you look at the left, they're like, oh well, African American people can't do this. You look at California, they're like, oh, nobody can do this. You look at the right, they're like, I don't even know what the right's on that.
Should we schedule an appointment with him?
Oh, I would schedule an appointment with that guy. I'm actually flying out to
Mayor
California.
at StocktonCalifornia.gov.
If he would like to do an interview, well, I'm gonna try to get that guy on the podcast because I'm flying out to California next month.
Okay.
For a couple days. I'm going to see Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Live and direct. That's gonna be sick. Although super expensive. But that's because he's being hosted by a private organization. Probably because he got death threats. But we're gonna avoid that issue for now because I don't know enough about it. So what's next? Zach, why switching subjects here? You've done a lot of shit. Not to like hype your ego, but like you've done a lot of shit. You've been a lot of places. Why have you done that and nobody else has?
Okay. Well, first of all, this is where what I've done since high school has ended. A lot of, really where you want to start your life story. I heard a really interesting quote a while back. I forgot who said it, but they were talking about how success is less a few events here and there, but it's a pattern of how you live your life and like a pattern of succeeding in everything you do. And I was thinking about it, and it really goes back in high school. I worked a lot to diversify my skills and interests, and just
So
I tried to apply
how
myself
early
in-
did this start?
I've always been super inquisitive, and my mom taught me to read before I went to school, and so I think that was the building block of just reading like historical fiction books where I'm like getting that background. And
Are your parents super intelligent, or like what's their education level?
my dad got a degree from the University of Oklahoma, or Oklahoma State University,
Okay.
in mathematics, and my mom got a degree in graphic design, and so they've been
But not
phenomenal.
from like Stanford or anything. So
not
these are
Ivy
just like
League.
hardworking people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So they instilled hard work in you.
For sure. Hard work, and just I think a lot of times that's what it comes down to, because sometimes I look around me and I say, what makes me qualified to say I'm smarter than anyone else or that I'm better? And it really comes down to just making the most of what you're given. Like, you can take a hardworking person, you can take a super genius, and the hardworking person can get more accomplished, more done. And so I'm nowhere to say like if I'm smarter than someone, but I work with what is given to me, and I try to
you're
put that all
definitely
together.
taking advantage of the opportunities put in front of you. How long did it take for you to plan this whole excursion? You went to Mozambique, and then you went to where from Mozambique?
From Mozambique, I was in
Wait, hold
South
on. Let's start from the day you walk onto Arkansas.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't play, but like he doesn't play sports. He doesn't play sports.
Okay.
But like the day you come to Arkansas campus.
How about the
Where
summer?
have you been since then?
Okay, so let's go with right after high school ended.
So right after this is 2016.
Correct. Right after that ended, I was accepted as a Jack Kent Cooke college scholar, which essentially gives me up to $160,000 in scholarships.
Oh, I bet the
Phenomenal.
application process for that was tricky.
It was intense. I did a lot of work on that, and I'm so thankful to have gotten that. That institution, without them, I wouldn't be where I am right now, to be honest. So I got that, and so that summer I went to General Tommy Frank's 4-star leadership camp, which is a international selection process and fully paid for. Awesome opportunity for high school students.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so General Tommy Franks was in charge of all of Middle Eastern operations shortly after 9/11, I believe, and in that time, and personal friends with the King of Jordan. He's done some amazing stuff. He has a book. Really, really awesome person to check out. And so he runs a leadership camp for high school students that are headed into college soon.
Yeah.
And so I was had the opportunity to go to that. And so right after that, I was invited to the White House to an event that I got into through my Jack Kent Cooke scholarship. But it was with the First Lady Michelle Obama, and she was holding a conference for students that were headed into college as well, and talking about like what they'd worked through to get to where they were.
Is she tall in person? I feel like she's tall. I've always just thought she's tall.
Is she tall? I don't know.
She just seems like she's like, I mean, not like
she has
not
a
like
great
tall, but I feel like she's like
charisma and
5'10". Yeah, she's very. Yeah. Both her and
very well
Barack.
spoken. Yeah.
Not necessarily their children. With the what was that, a Coachella video? Yikes. No, but yeah, they're great. They know how to captivate an audience. They're kind of like, you know, what Bill and Hillary wish they could be. If you boil it down, I mean, Bill had it, and then you can't blame Hillary. She wrote a book. Read the book, I guess. I haven't read it yet, so I'm not going to speak on it.
Back on topic here.
But yeah, no. They're I mean, as far as like, you know, like a power couple, that's a power couple right there. Okay, so you went and saw Obama.
So after that, I came back, and unless maybe I got to I went to the White House first, and then went to General Tommy Franks leadership camp. Then after that, I was accepted to a program with Askinosie Chocolate, which is an artisan chocolate company that engages in direct trade with various places in Latin America and Tanzania, the Philippines. And he buys cocoa beans, brings them back, and he has an awesome, phenomenal. Sean Askinosie is the founder.
Okay.
And
we'll
CEO.
put links to all this in the description.
And he's. I'm actually in the middle of one of his books right now, but I had the opportunity to go to Tanzania with him on a program called Chocolate University, and that's where he sponsors a few children, young adults, high school, coming in out of high school,
18-year-olds,
age. To go to Tanzania and engage in this process and interact. We did work in one of the schools there. That was a phenomenal experience to see the way that you can have it's really an awesome example of social entrepreneurship, I would say. Phenomenal guy, and he has an amazing story. And so I had that opportunity, and then I came back. That's when I entered the University of Arkansas.
Wait, before you get that, how do you, like, you mentioned a couple of these really cool opportunities that you have. How do you like start finding these? Because I mean, this isn't just something like I feel like
you didn't
like
just stumble
run
into this bitch. Like,
so,
you started. What did you?
I
doing some research. Like what, 14?
So this comes back to one of my other favorite ideologies or sayings, but that essentially you are the sum of your 5 closest friends, or you know that thought.
Zane, can you pull up who said that? I've never heard that shit before.
I don't know if it's like a saying or just a general ideology.
Well,
but
no, I'm sure it's a thing.
Okay.
I'm not doubting that like it's a thing. I'm just like, I want to know who said it so I can read more stuff about it.
Yeah. So, and I just think that's awesome because it shows like you are who you interact with most closely, and you become more like them. And so I try to surround myself with the best and brightest around me that I can.
So you try to be the, like, not necessarily the dumbest person in the room, but the dumbest person in the room.
I try to be. You don't want to be the top in your friend group just because that means you're not going to grow. Yeah. If you're at the bottom, it means there's room for growth for sure. Being in the middle is optimal. You know, especially when it's just like a working relationship between everyone where everyone's growing. Well, I mean,
if you're in the middle, you can help people and help people help you, because you know that's something.
But it's hard to rank, like, say I'm like higher than that. You know, it's just in different regions.
Yeah, but you should. I mean, definitely be around people who are doing stuff that you're not doing. Exactly. And diversify yourself.
Exactly. Jim Ron said that. Yep.
Never heard of this Jim Ron.
He's a business. I'm trying to find out more about him right now.
But that's where I had friends who applied to some of it, and then the other thing is. Research. Like, if you don't research, like, I'm sorry, but if you don't put effort into stuff, no one wins huge scholarships by sitting on their couch and like watching TV all day or just gaming. Like, you have to put some work into it. It wasn't easy. I'm not gonna say it was easy. I'm not gonna say it was just because I was the best person ever either, but I put in the work and I like tried to demonstrate myself in the best light possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got a 40% scholarship for Vietnam. I probably put 120 hours into that. Mm-hmm. Did you get that one too?
Oh, well, I'm a University of Arkansas fellow, so I have $70,000
Okay, so did you even apply for scholarship for Vietnam?
Not on that one.
Okay, well, thank you. 'Cause that probably could. That
I
probably
didn't know. I
allowed me
did
to
the same. I applied for the one for Mozambique. I
Yeah.
got the 40%.
That probably took you, what, at least 100 hours?
Yeah, I mean, it's
I
pretty,
applied for that one and then the one for India as well.
Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, here's the thing. I never probably would have
And
applied.
just pause. When I say
Yeah.
120 hours, I literally mean 120 hours. I set up meetings for the scholarship. Jason, you remember Jason? Oh God, why did Jason leave?
missed that guy.
I had
Blankenship?
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
had
he was
meetings with him
awesome.
at 7 a.m. for like every Wednesday, which I fucking hated Wednesdays. But it was before one of my other classes, and it was the only time in the week that worked for him.
Yeah.
And so every single Wednesday, I'd wake up at like 6. Well, I'd already be up usually because I had other stuff to
Back
do.
when you never slept at all.
I still don't sleep.
Cool.
Yeah, no. And so, I mean, we probably met 5-6 times. And in between those times, he would edit it and just destroy my entire work. And so I had to rewrite. I mean, I'm writing for the airfare scholarship. I'm writing for the 40% scholarship. I'm writing for other scholarships, various scholarships around. I only got one of them. And it just happened to be the one that was worth the most. And so I'm rewriting all of these in between our meetings on a weekly basis.
Well, here's the thing that I found. Like, 120 hours, I mean, however, you can value your time however you want, but I don't think I've spent quite that much time, but I think at the end of the day...
I'm kind of slow.
I mean...
Also, the lack of sleep slows
Yeah,
my
that's
stuff down.
true.
Yeah.
But I think I look at some people's scholarship applications, and it makes no sense why they're saying what they're saying.
Yeah.
And just like what advice I would give for scholarships and stuff is essentially what they want to see is what you're doing now
Yeah.
and how essentially you are like a bulb for a flower, and the scholarship's going to come through and water you, and you're going to become a flower. So like it's your initiative, but they're going to aid you in that process,
Yeah.
and they want to see like what you're going to become with them.
Yeah, because it's their money.
And exactly. And but the problem is a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to study abroad to experience another culture," and they don't say what they're doing now to like already be invested in this type of opportunity.
Right.
They're not saying what they're going to do afterwards. They're not saying what they're going to do during the trip to increase their social value.
That was something Jason hammered me on. And for going to Vietnam, he's like, "Well, why do you want to go to Vietnam?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because it sounds cool." And he's like, "Well, you're gonna need something better than that, or you're not even gonna get in the program." And so, I mean, I take it you sat down and kind of like evaluated your life, like, where am I now? Where am I going? How am I gonna get there?
Yes. So that's it's really important to my personal philosophy is you can't know for sure where you're going to end up, but I always have a like what I consider for myself a best opportunity plan.
Like a
So,
serendipitous outlook.
like right now it's like to get out of college with my minors and my major, to get either the Rhodes or the Truman or both if I can, but that's probably a little too optimistic.
Yeah.
And then get into Oxford for their developmental econ master's degree.
Yeah.
And then after that possibly a PhD, but getting into work with some like major heavyweight institutions. But that's my like plans for the rest of high school, or I mean for the rest of college. I'm planning, should I go to Bhutan and try to intern with the king, or should I go to London and try to intern with an organization that works with the Middle East, or should I go?
Yeah.
But I always have a plan that I'm shooting for, but you have to be open to change, and
I may be
without
able
that
to-
plan you can't
I may be able to get you some investments in North Africa.
really. Okay.
That work with the Middle East.
Cool.
Because the way the money flows, it goes like Middle East to Africa to London, London to Middle East to Africa, and then back and forth.
Okay.
But the Africa's kind of where, they see both sides of the deal.
Which regions of Africa?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I just signed papers and sent them.
Cool. Okay.
And so, right, so you're in Tanzania, getting back on subject.
Yeah.
So 2016, right? When did you start applying to these things? I take it 2015 as a junior?
Some of these scholarships I literally would apply for like a couple nights before, if like I didn't find out about it in time.
Yeah.
It's always best to, I'll get these feelings with essays, and this is how my Jack Kent Cook essays were like this. And these were essays I actually put a lot of work into.
Yeah.
I wrote them, and then I have, my parents, my friends, English teachers,
Anybody who's willing to read it.
everybody read it until it's a glowing essay, because really the more heads that you can get, you don't want to take away from your content, but the style in which you write it. you want to just make sure that it's in the best light possible.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're covering all the points.
Exactly. And so that's really so vital. And so some of these, I would be a few months out. For example, the Truman Scholarship, and I'm now looking to the Rhodes Scholarship.
Both those take years of planning.
Well, exactly, and that's where literally one of the first day I got on campus,
and just for people who don't know, can you tell us what the Truman
Yeah, the Truman Scholarship is especially for students that are going into social work, development type activities, and so that's where that fits into my aspirations very well.
Mm-hmm.
The Rhodes Scholarship is specifically for Oxford, for very high achieving students with a good academic background, physical background, essentially just the most well-rounded
people are putting effort into stuff.
Exactly.
And yeah,
and that's the Truman I think is only for Americans, but the Rhodes is
worldwide.
like
what, two people get it each year?
No,
2 people per region.
2 people per region.
And then I think there's a couple of regions in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So back to on topic again. First day you arrive on campus, that's where I got you off.
So the first day I got on campus, I actually literally walked down to the study abroad office and was like, hey, I want to look up what I can do, where I can go, what my options are.
Yeah.
That January I was in Vietnam with you, and we were on the ground running. And then after that, I was back. I was actually wanting to be in Dubai that semester, but I'd already planned my trip to Mozambique with Dr. Amy Farmer, the econ professor here. And so that I decided to just stay on campus that semester. And then right after Mozambique, I actually went through South Africa and then Turkey before heading to Morocco for Arabic. And this...
Wait, hold on, you lost me.
Okay, so after
Mozambique
was in the summer, my first summer.
Yeah.
And then right after that, we went through South Africa. So I stayed a few days. I actually got to stay with an individual who was, I think, the chief commissioner of gender equality after the apartheid, helped with the apartheid revolution to help bring it down. Personal friend of Nelson Mandela.
That's crazy.
And I found him on couchsurfing.com. So yeah, just put a note in today. That was pretty great. But and then I went to Turkey and just for a few days, just for pleasure, to look around in Istanbul. And then I was in Morocco. But what I'm trying to get to is this requires quite a bit of planning. Like right now I'm looking into several different programs, trying to match dates, waiting for letters of acceptance or rejection to plan on my next steps. And so you always have to be quick on your feet, and you have to be willing to put in a lot of time, because I'm taking 22 hours this semester. 9 of Arabic, quite a few hours of honors courses, econ courses, and then I'm going on this India project.
You have to show up every Sunday for that or something?
Quite a few Sundays. It's one of our most high intensity programs we have here. And then I'm also trying to get all these other programs arranged. So what it comes down to is just being ambitious. You can't achieve a lot of stuff if you're gonna settle to be subpar.
Well, I mean, also, how many things have you been rejected from? At first.
At first?
At first. Like, how many things did you apply for that you got rejected from?
I got rejected from the Gilman Scholarship, which is for diversity. But, I mean, I think most of the other stuff I've gotten.
Okay. Well, that didn't work out, because I was just hoping you would say a lot. I mean, for me, for example, I got rejected from Vietnam at first.
Okay.
Then I got put on a wait list, and then I got a scholarship, and so I pressured them into doing that. And then, so they got me in. And then London, I got rejected from 3 internships, then found my internship with Sterling Bros.
Okay.
Currently, I mean, for spring, I still haven't found an internship. I applied to like 300 on 3 different continents.
Wow. Okay.
And so, yeah, that's not going well.
Okay.
But, I mean, the point is, I'm also doing something because I have a nice setup for this summer and going forward. But, I mean, people get rejected from a lot of shit. Like,
yeah.
Because, I mean, I've seen people just, like, seeing, what I'm doing, and they're like, oh, well, you what are you doing right? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything right. I'm doing a lot of shit wrong.
Yeah.
And just some of it sticks.
The fact of the matter is your work ethic. I mean, that's where it comes down to just being relentless at your efforts to get into these programs. For me, it's less about rejection and more about just trying to get the dates to work out, since scholarships are behind me. So I don't know. That's really where there is a lot of rejection that you do have to face with universities and with different programs. But when it comes down to paid programs, they're a little bit easier.
Yeah. Now, how'd you end up at the University of Arkansas?
The University of Arkansas. So there were several factors that went into studying here, but at the end of the day, I have about over $300,000 of scholarships to be here, and so financially, that's not really a problem.
Yeah.
And study abroad, there is no limit with the Walton College of Business, which is pretty phenomenal. A lot of places say you can only be abroad maximum like 2 semesters, which is not going to work for me.
A lot of places,
Okay, yeah.
The coursework is so intensive. I mean, you go to these upper level colleges like, Columbia, Stanford, and just you have so much shit going on that you don't even have time to study abroad.
Which is why, so in the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, most of my peers are going to Ivy Leagues right now.
Yeah.
But to be on par with them, that's why I am so heavily pursuing study abroad. But more than just like the concept of study abroad, it's really the experiences I gained through those. So internships, people I meet, connections. To be able to come out where the University of Arkansas, it's a good school, but it doesn't compare to Harvard and Yale. But to be able to say, I've studied abroad 11 times, I've, have 3 minors in my major, I have this scholarship and that.
Yeah.
I'd say that's worth something. And so that's why
I'd say it's worth more than Harvard.
Arkansas,
just from my perspective,
really.
though. Yeah, no, and well, I mean, it all just goes back to, presenting yourself with as many opportunities as possible, because none of these things are seeking you out, right? I mean, even now, nobody came to you for India. Hey, Zach, you want to go to India?
No.
Like, you had to go and you had to apply.
The day the professor presented his program in our freshman orientation class, I caught him on the way out and was like, hey, I'm really interested in this. And so, like, I was, like, one of the first students who was interested in that from the freshman class.
That's Zan. When Dr. Farmer presented to our economics class, Zan and I went out there literally, like, we skipped part of class, went and talked to her.
Okay.
I'd already talked to Nally before that.
Yeah, same.
So, I mean...
you have to seek people out. That's what it comes down.
And that, I mean, if I didn't go talk to her right then, I probably wouldn't have gotten into Vietnam. I mean, it certainly helped Zan get into Mozambique.
Oh, yeah.
And then once you get that, they can kind of help you arrange scholarships. Because they have power with that, and that there's a certain number of scholarships that have to go out, and there's only a certain number of people going.
And on that point, that's one of the things I was going to mention earlier with, like, just Jack Kent Cooke, for example, because they are a little bit more nationally competitive, like, for sure nationally competitive, but at the end of the day, a lot of people don't apply because they think a lot of other people are applying.
Yeah.
And for sure there are a lot of people applying, but
it's like voting.
The worst that can happen is
2016.
That you get the worst that can happen is that you get a no, which you get by not applying anyways.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't have applied to Jack Kent Cooke, I wouldn't have these opportunities. And so that's where you have to take every opportunity that you come across and not.
All right, and just kind of wrapping up on a little bit of a lighter note.
Yeah.
Why do you dress so nice? Because I just for people who don't know, it is a Saturday, and I'm in socks, slacks, and a polo.
I'm wearing jeans. So.
Zan's wearing jeans. I hate jeans.
But Zach's over here looking.
However, they do look very nice. Girls look very nice in jeans.
Zach's over here ready to
guys
have a business meeting or interview,
Zach's
whatever life throws at.
Zach's in some sort of Oxfords, a 3-piece suit, and a shirt, like a button up. Yeah, not a button down. Never wear a button down. That's a mistake. Always wear a button up. If you don't know the difference, you probably don't know a lot. And
so what is it? What's the reasoning?
I guess to me,
is that a Calvin Klein by chance?
No, this is literally just about every single thing I'm wearing is Express.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, no, I must have that. I actually have that exact jacket from Express then.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Express.
I have 3 of them.
Nice. Yeah, I have like several Express jackets just sitting in my closet at home that I pick from. But I'd say at the end of the day, I think that personal branding is one of the most important things. The way you present yourself in public and the way you talk, the way you hold yourself and bear yourself when around others, you don't notice how much people are looking at the way you conduct yourself.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a professor the other day. He's like, oh yeah, like I know all about this like enrollment situation you're in, and I've been like keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
No idea he was watching me.
Yeah.
but it's like my goal is to present myself as a professional, competent individual who's ambitious and hopefully intellectual. And at the end of the day, I think it's that drive. I mean, you have these millionaires, billionaires that are walking around in jeans and a hoodie, and that works for them. But my personal
they're also millionaires and billionaires, and you're not.
Exactly.
You're trying to get there. And I mean, when they were trying to get there, they weren't walking around in jeans and a hoodie. Well, I mean, it's different if you it's different if you start Facebook.
Yeah.
But I mean,
but overall, like I mean,
your clothes aren't super expensive, is what I'm getting at. As in, compared to
I'm
most
a student, so I can't afford getting
but compared to most students,
couple $1,000.
Yeah, compared
suit.
to most students, who are walking around like a North Face jacket, some sort of Southern
wearing
Comfort or whatever the fuck is
t-shirts.
popular now. They're wearing like $1,000 worth of shit, and it just looks trashy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're coming in. I mean, what is that total? Definitely less than 500. Yeah.
I think the suit comes out probably around 500.
Yeah, around 500.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if most people just looked at what they were wearing every single day, they're wearing about $500 worth of clothes every day. And I mean, you got people who are buying, $300-$400 tennis shoes. Which I mean, if that's your thing, go for it.
It's not like you're gonna judge anyone, are you?
Yeah, no, I have a few pairs. But I mean, I don't wear those out, like in public.
Yeah.
Those are for collection and they have purpose. A lot of them I wear for sports or lifting or stuff like that. And just so a lot of you know, Zach is not a serious motherfucker. This guy rides unicycle and juggles.
I got an offer in Dubai to juggle fire at a desert show, actually.
Yeah, so this guy is
currently
not
looking into how to breathe fire. So that's
this guy is not some what's the right word?
I don't even know what word you're looking for.
some dweeb, or some shit that like you couldn't be as an individual out there, and that Zach just puts his best foot forward, and it's probably not always easy walking around in a suit. I'm sure you get a lot of shit for that.
Sometimes, but I mean,
well, yeah, but it's usually coming from somebody who
doors.
is high as shit and they're just, smoking pot and skipping class. Nothing against people who smoke pot and skip class. And
all right, yeah.
Well, I showed up to 1 out of 7 classes this week.
It's about how you end up and your results. If your style is not like this, but you get stuff done, you do it. Yeah. But for me and my profession,
and everybody's gonna find their own thing. Yeah.
Exactly. This is where I need to be.
Yeah. Well, just like if you can give it to us in like 2 or 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. How'd you get into juggling and unicycle?
Yeah. So when I had a friend that had a unicycle, so that was just kind of an interesting thing. Just a week, I saw her unicycle and I tried it out, just like half an hour.
Yeah.
But then one day I was at a Dixie Stampede in Branson. I don't know.
I've been there.
Yeah. So the pre-show. Well, the pre-show. I don't know if you went to the pre-show, but the pre-show was.
I was sick.
Okay. Well, and the pre-show where I was, it was this maybe 10-year-old. He wasn't that old, but he was juggling 9 balls, doing some crazy stuff, and I was like, that is so impressive. And I've always enjoyed like performance type events, weird stuff like that. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna give it a try. So I got into that and started playing around with that. I can't juggle 5, which once you can juggle 5, like anyone can learn 3, 4 but 5 is where you've arrived. I'm not there yet.
I did like the scarves and PE.
Yeah, scarves. That's a good way to start.
I think I got 2 of them. So yeah.
But then the unicycle was kind of an extension. It kind of goes along, but then I was like, oh, that's cool. So I bought my first unicycle for $30 from Sketchy Dude on Craigslist. Went out to his
shout out Sketchy Dude on
neighborhood,
Craigslist.
and got it, and it worked. Actually, in Dubai, I was able to buy one for $30 from a professor, and a news company ended up coming out and filming me riding around campus. And
you're putting yourself out there, and it's working out.
Yeah,
they did that twice, didn't you? You got 2 interviews.
I got tons of interviews for different things, but by the TV news company, it was just one.
And I showed one to my hair, and he liked it. Okay. He's like, that probably worked out pretty well for him. As far, it painted you in a positive light, and you can show that to people in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything else you want to touch on really quickly?
Let your interests drive your life. A life without passion won't get you anywhere. You can make money and be successful by other people's standards without being passionate about it. But once you meet where your passion meets, the real world, that's where you can actually make a difference around you. And you'll be the most satisfied. It's about defining what personal success looks like and how
Yeah.
to. It doesn't have to match up.
Well,
with
I mean
everybody else's,
that goes
but
on your career. I mean, your career path isn't exactly lucrative.
It depends.
Well, yeah, I mean, it
can
depends. There's
be
a lot.
very
There's a shit
lucrative,
ton of money in
But
it.
then, on the other hand, if I choose to go some routes, and that's where I'm trying to remember throughout this whole thing. You know, I just studied in Dubai. I was like going around with one of my friends in his Lamborghini. Like I'm around some of the richest people, most affluential people. But at the end of the day, money and materialism won't get you everywhere.
Yeah.
And I want to be happy with my life, whether I have a lot or whether I have a little. And since my life purpose is to help others have a better economic situation for their family so they can eat and send their children to school, at the end of the day, if I'm not making money, but I'm subsisting well with my family and I can help others, that's
I mean, if
what
you have a
matters.
roof over your head and enough to feed yourself most of the time, you're pretty much set as long as you're doing what you love.
Yep.
And so
I think that's a great place.
I think
to
that's
end
a great
right there.
place
That's
to end it.
Thank you.
We
Very-
still, thanks for coming on, Zach.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you back again because we didn't even
Sounds
touch on
great.
half the stuff.
Yeah.
Fascinating
Solid.
character. If you're listening from the University of Arkansas and you see a weird motherfucker riding around in a 3-piece suit on a unicycle juggling,
Be sure to say hi.
be sure to say hi.
Say
That's
hi.
Zac Smith. Fascinating character, and he will definitely be back on the podcast soon. We still haven't figured out an exit for this.
So yeah, this is
so-
Lifr podcast signing off.
Lifr podcast episode 1 or 2. Not sure. This is gonna end pretty shitty.
Thank you for listening to the Lifr podcast. Check out the links below for more information.
You know.